flock with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. The Lord executeth righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. He made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous in mercy. He will not always shy, neither will he keep his anger forever. He hath not dealt with us after our sins, nor rewarded us according to our iniquities. For as the heaven is high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward them that fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgressions from us. Like a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. For he knoweth our frame. He remembereth that we are dust. Amen. Amen. So like I said, hold on. Like I said, the message for tonight is there's so much grace. And just looking at even where we are at right now, in the place of where we're transitioning, in the place where we are shifting and moving forward, and God is changing so much in us. A lot of times, there's a lot of in-between time with that. And a lot of times, when we're in that place, we are trying to not just get to a place where we are trusting and believing God for this promise, but we're at the place where we're trying to figure out, is he really going to do it and give it to me personally? A lot of times we struggle with, okay, is God going to give it all to me? Maybe it's going to be just some of it. Maybe I'm not going to make it, and it's going to be somebody else before me. Maybe sometimes we struggle with even thinking like, okay, God, do I deserve it? Did I do enough? Was I giving enough? Was I loving enough? Was I obedient enough? Did I, walk in faith enough? All these questions are usually like going on in our minds the closer we get, to getting our promise. And Minister Kessia has spoken a lot about this on Sunday about, the challenges of how you're getting, when you're getting closer. Are you gonna be afraid? Are you gonna still have enough faith to be able to receive it? But tonight I'm here to talk about when you're getting closer to the promise, do you realize that what's going to make the difference in all those doubts in your mind and all that unbelief and all the fear in your mind is God's grace at the end of the day. He's going to make up the difference for that. He is going to be the one to be the difference for that. And a lot of times it's not going to be about us being perfect and us doing all the right things, but it's going to be us being able to acknowledge that God is the one that's perfect. He's the one that does all the right things, and because of his grace and his favor towards us, he is going to be able to be the one to cause it to come together. And it's not because of us doing anything or saying anything, but it's because he really wants to do it. And the word that God has told me to tell you guys is that he wants to do it for us. He wants to give the promise to us simply because he loves us and simply because he wants to give us the grace to be able to receive that promise. And so I just want to encourage you guys with that before we get into this. And so jumping into verse 1 and 2, it says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits." And so what God was dealing with me in this was that a lot of times the closer we get to the promise, the more we need to realize that not only do we need to prepare our minds for it, but we need to prepare our hearts for it. And there's a lot of warfare that goes on, not only in our minds, but in our hearts. There's a lot of things, challenging us, debating with us, they're questioning us, condemning us sometimes, coming up to make us feel guilty, causing us to feel fear, anything you could think of, shame. Like, there's so many things in our hearts that we still are sometimes afraid to speak out loud that is troubling us when we get closer to the promise, because everyone around us seems really excited. Like, everyone around us seem like they got it together and they're about to get it, and they have it all together. And sometimes you don't want to be the one to say, like, well, I'm still struggling with my mind, like, I'm still struggling with my heart, trying to believe, like, now the guy's gonna do it, but he's gonna do it all. And it's like, over the years we like believe God, or over the months we believe God for, you know, small things, sometimes big things, but the things that God wants to do, that we're being told that they're going to astonish us. Like, they're going to be immense, they're going to be huge, and there's going to be things that we've never even, you know, thought about or, you know, came to our mind. So it's just like, when you think of like the gravity of what God's about to do for us, it does make you want to think like, oh my God, like, you know, did I do enough? Like, God, are you really going to do it for me? And one of the things that I liked about David is that, you know, even though he struggled a lot in his life, like he struggled with lust of his flesh, you know, he struggled with the lust of his eyes, like he struggled with, you know, even, you know, confrontation. Like, there's so many things that, you know, we can relate to that he has struggled with. But when it came to worshiping and praising God, he knew, like, no matter how dirty he was, like, no matter how much he was struggling in his mind and his heart, he knew if he could get into God's presence and just worship and praise him, that it was gonna usher in that grace that he needs to make the difference, and however jacked up he's feeling or however unworthy he's feeling. And in the scripture, we're looking at the first two, like, basically David is taking the time to, like, basically, you know, look at his heart. He's taking the time to really evaluate his heart. He's taking the time to evaluate his whole soul before God, and he's looking to connect to God. And basically, he's trying to search, like, okay, you know, if God is about to do this for me right now, what else has he done in the past that I could, you know, remember or rehearse to kind of bring back to my heart, bring back to my mind, and strengthen whatever area that I'm struggling with. And basically, he said that it had to be, you know, what are the personal benefits that he found in God. And for many of us, it could vary from, you know, spiritual benefits that we receive, natural benefits that we receive, you know, God dealing with our emotions, God dealing with, you know, this situation, that situation, him dealing with, you know, craziness happening in our families, trying to make ends meet. Like, there's been so many personal benefits that have come simply because we have went to God and wanted to commune with him. We went to God and asked him, you know, come in and help me. And in the scripture, like, basically, David is taking the time to bless God for that. And for me and stuff like that, like, I had to really think to myself, like, God, so often, like, instead of doing that, when those fears come up in me, I look to complain. Or, you know, instead I look to, you know, try to figure it out myself. Or I try to, you know, do whatever I can either to ignore it or deny it or run from it, like, you know, whatever it is. I never think to myself, like, okay, the first place that you want me to do is to run to you and connect with you. The first thing you want me to do is run to you and basically rehearse, like, everything about that I know about you, all the good things that I know about you, all the good things that you've done for me. And in that place of blessing you, it causes that fear to honestly not only decrease, but the more we do it, it can cancel it out of us. And so, one of the things that, you know, I liked about that was that, and as it says in even, you know, looking at verse 3, it says, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. And a lot of times I'm just like, okay, you know, when I want to be stubborn, I'm just like, okay, you know, I don't want to try to get real detailed about all the good things that God has done. I want to just say, like, God, yeah, you did some great things. You did help me. But in the scriptures, like, David is just going detail by detail. He's basically, you know, listing how much grace, like, God really has had upon his life. And then for me, as I was reading this, like, part of the day, I had to just sit down and just, like, lie down and be like, oh my God, like, you know, God, this is so true. Like, you have been doing this and so much more. And so not only has, you know, God forgiven our sins, not only has he forgiven, you know, the hidden thoughts that we had and the wickedness in us, and all the ways that we, you know, failed him, and all the ways that, you know, we have fallen short. But he says that he's even come in and healed our diseases. And it may not just be, like, you know, medical conditions we've had. I know for me, God has healed me of some mental stuff. Like, he's healed me of, like, depression and, you know, struggling with, like, you know, do I want to live, and struggling with, like, anxiety, struggling with, you know, all sorts of craziness going in my mind. And, you know, for many of us, it could be like, you know, God has, you know, done a great healing in your mind, or he's done a great healing in your heart, or he's done a great healing in your soul. But at the end of the day, these are all things that were, like, diseases within us that we needed, you know, healing from. And these were things that, you know, we didn't even know that we needed a physician like God to come in and take care of. And so as David is listing these things, for me, I'm just like, God, like, you know, for some of us, like, you know, we literally, you know, could have been in a psychiatric ward, or we could have been, like, you know, in prison, in a jail, or we could have been homeless, or, you know, we could have been, you know, lost, or we could have been, like, you know, addicted to, you know, this drug or that alcohol. Like, there's so many things that we should have been, you know, stuck in, so many things that we shouldn't have gotten free out of. But here, like, David is just listing them, and as he says even in verse 4, he redeemeth that life from destruction. And basically those are all destructive ways that were happening in us. There are so many things that we thought were right, so many things that we thought were completing us, not realizing that we were just walking and walking and walking closer to a place of destruction. And even for me, like, you know, just thinking about, like, the different points that God has even intervened in my life to, you know, turn things around or pull me out of certain things, or basically say to me, like, okay, you know, not let me have, like, the severity of, like, the consequences that I should have had. I never realized, you know, how much I was basically looking to, like, destroy myself. And that's what we do when we're chasing after the things of this world, and we're chasing after the things that society says to us, like, oh, this is going to make your life perfect, this is going to make your life happy, this is going to make your life fulfilled. Like, these things, it looks nice in the beginning, and they feel good even in the middle of it, but at the end of it, it's still destruction for us. And even at this point, like, David is talking about, like, how God just redeemed him from these things. And for us, the fact that we're even sitting here, the fact that we're even here today, even the fact that we're together, it's because God has redeemed each and every one of our lives. He's allowed so much grace, I mean, so much grace to be poured out over our lives to cause us to be in this place. Because if any of us are honest with ourselves, we are very rebellious, we are very stubborn, you know, we're very disobedient. Like, we are so stiff-necked, as the Bible talks about. And we really didn't deserve to be here, but I do thank God that he gave us the grace to be in this room. And it says that in verse 4, he crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies. And, you know, what I got from this is that as God has redeemed each and every one of our lives, like I already said, we didn't deserve it. We didn't do anything to merit it. We didn't do anything to you know, to turn God's eye to us. But the fact that God chose to love us, the fact that God chose to show kindness upon us, the fact that God chose to choose us and to show us his tender mercy, that is why we're here. And sometimes we miss that. Being intellectual, or being so goal-driven, being so, you know, people that are just, like, you know, always trying to achieve, you know, this and that and the third. Sometimes we miss the fact that love is enough. Like, sometimes we miss the fact that, you know, God's, you know, tenderness and kindness to us, it's enough to cause us to have life in it. It's enough. Like, you don't need to, you know, have, like, these performance tests with God for him to be able to come into our lives and to do what we need him to do. And so, even in this, I love the fact that, you know, David is just breaking it down for us, even, you know, more and more, how much grace that God has, and even just the way that, you know, God's favor towards us looks, and the way his generosity looks to us, the way his kindness looks to us, the way, you know, he basically accepts us, approves us, esteems us. All of this is based off of his grace for our life, based off his grace for us. And verse 5 says, who satisfies thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. And so, one of the things that, you know, I was looking at is that many times, you know, we are so, Kessia and Donnie talked about this over the weekend, where we're so focused on the end goal. You know, we're so focused on the promise that God is about to release to us that, you know, sometimes we struggle with focusing in. Dolly talked about focusing on the steps, the process in between. Kessia talked about the fact that, you know, God may actually be doing things in different, like, measurements in between, and that we may miss it because we're so focused on getting it all at once. And one of the things that God was saying to even add to that, God was telling me to add to it, that we in the in between time of where we're at now and as we're about to receive God's promise, we need to remember his track record. Like we need to remember and rehearse, you know, how he has a perfect track record with us. And even in this verse 5, David is talking about all these good things that God has done to just satisfy him. And a lot of times, you know, we find that, you know, we speak out of our mouth what we think is going to satisfy us. Like, you know, we may think more money is going to satisfy us. We may think, you know, falling in love or getting married may satisfy us. We may think, you know, getting that job is going to satisfy us, you know, getting that house, getting that car, all these like materialistic things. Or even sometimes we may think, you know, what's going to satisfy me is, you know, just, you know, things not being hectic anymore. Like, you know, we not having any problems or any trouble. Like, there's so many different ways that we think satisfaction is going to come in.
Right.
What I liked about this is that, you know, David was talking about, you know, when things are supposed to satisfy us, they have to be good. And for them to be good, they have to come from God. And for them to come from God, it has to be that we're at a place where, you know, out of our mouths, we're willing to receive that God knows best for us, that God has best for us, that God knows what's good for us. And a lot of times we miss that because sometimes we forget to look at God's track record over the years, even from our childhood to our adulthood, that, you know, everything that he has done, not only has it been good, but somehow he has worked it all out for our good, even when it hasn't been picture perfect or it hasn't been, you know, how we wanted it to be. Like, he has always found a way to work it out for our good. And in that place has been satisfaction. And I liked it because I was just like, God, you know, looking at your track record and stuff like that, you know, if I look at every good thing that you've given me, it's lasted. It's fulfilled me. It's satisfied me. It hasn't, you know, rotted away. Like, it hasn't been lost. Like, if anything, you keep building upon it and you keep adding upon it. And, you know, because of that, you know, it's caused, you know, even my whole life, not only to change on the the external part of it, but internally, I've seen how God has changed my life. Like, right. And each of us can say that, like, we are not who we were a year ago. We are not who we were, you know, 2 years ago. We definitely are not who we were, like, you know, 10 years ago. And that's because God's track record has proven itself that he knows what's best for us, and he knows what's right for us, and he knows what's good for us. And because of that, if we continue to allow God to do these things and to not only prove himself, but to have complete access to us, in the latter half of verse 5, it talks about that he wants to basically restore and renew our youth like the eagles. And so I thought this was, like, you know, interesting. And so I was just like, you know, God, you know, why would you compare our youth, you know, to eagles? Or why would you use that as an example? And so I had looked it up, and basically I never knew this, but eagles actually can live to be between the ages of 60 and 100 years old. And one actually lived to be like 126 or something crazy like that. And I was like, what? But they actually live a long, long life. And on top of it, it said that when eagles are getting close to, like, their old age, like if they're about to turn 60, or even in this case, they're about to turn 100, basically God causes them to basically shed off all of their feathers. And basically, he regenerates on them like new feathers, to the point that it said that if you compare a 100-year-old eagle to that of an eagle that's maybe 16 months old, you honestly can't tell the difference between either or of them. And basically, what I was reading was saying that the process for the eagles to shed all their feathers, like, you know, each year they do shed like a measurement of it, but basically when they get to like their end point, or not really, but basically, yeah, getting closer to the point where it seems like, okay, they have no more life to live, or, you know, there's nowhere else to go. Like, God just literally causes them to shed everything off and start over again, basically. And what I was reading basically explained that this process for the eagles is actually called their wilderness experience. And I thought that was really cool, because that's basically what we are in right now as we're crossing over this Jordan. We're leaving back our wilderness experience, and we're, you know, being ushered into, you know, God's promise. Right. And basically, you know, when I went back to the verse, like basically that's what God was saying to me, was that it's not too late for us. Like even though we may have feel like, you know, things have expired, or maybe we feel like, okay, we don't have that much time, or we feel like there's a lot of catching up to do, or we may feel like, oh my God, like, you know, maybe my time has passed, and it's, like I said, maybe, you know, what you're about to do isn't really for me, God. You know, what God was saying to me is that, no, just like the eagles, he wants to renew our youth. Like, he wants to renew us, you know, back to the place where, you know, we were strongly faced for him, back to the place where, you know, we were like on passion and on fire for him, you know, back to the place where, you know, we experienced, you know, so much fervency for him. And basically that's what it was saying about the eagles. Like, basically it said that they basically were actually better than any other point of their lives by the time they got to be 100. It said that they soared higher. It said that they flew higher. It said that their eyesight was better. It said that they were stronger and quicker than any other point in their lives. And that's basically what God was saying to me, is that even though we've been sometimes going through this wilderness process, complaining, doubting, being fearful, being unbelieving, complaining, you know, God's grace was that even though it may have seemed like, okay, we weren't in a good place, we honestly were in a good place. That it was the place where God was not only breaking us and changing us and remolding us, but it's the place that he was stripping us as well and causing us to shed off of us everything that has been weighing us down, everything that has been, you know, keeping us back, everything that has been causing us, you know, to not be able to press past the ceiling that we felt that we hit, this place that we feel like, you know, we've been stuck in. But it's all been purposeful, because in God's grace that there's been so much of it, it's been causing us to, like Apostle said, change everything on the inside so that he could change everything on the outside as well. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys with that, you know, God is renewing our youth like the eagles. And, you know, when the enemy tries to make you feel like you're old or tired, you can't stop him. Like, I have the spirit of God, and he's going to renew me like the eagles. All right, Mother Val. Looking at verse 6 and 7, it says, the Lord executed righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed, and he made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. And just piggyback on, you know, what we were just talking about, like how we're coming out of the wilderness experience, how we are crossing over the Jordan. We're about to claim and receive our promise. You know, in these two verses, like, you know, God is basically, you know, talking to us about, okay, not only what has he done in time past, but what can we learn from the lessons of how he, you know, was God to Moses, how he was a God to Israel, how much grace did he abound towards them during that time, how much did he, you know, execute, you know, righteousness, and it was just before them, even in their place of oppression, you know, when they were in Egypt, like, how did he usher them out? And basically, you know, God is just reminding us, okay, of where we came from, so that even though we're crossing over, that we know, okay, we're never going to be there again. And basically, you know, God's just saying to even us in these scriptures that, you know, even though we can look at Israel and they were stiff-necked, they were rebellious, you know, they were always, you know, running after other idols. They were always, you know, looking, you know, to complain and do that, do this, that, and the third. At the end of the day, like, God's grace, I've never seen it abound so much the way we've been studying, you know, these past few months, you know, from, you know, Genesis, you know, all the way to Deuteronomy, like, just how God has been showing so much grace, not only to Moses, but just using him towards the people, and how he's been, you know, just showing so much acts of kindness even to the children of Israel. And at the end of the day, no matter what they did, yes, there was consequences, and we all experienced it. At the end of the day, God never canceled out the promise or the purpose that he was designing for them. One way or the other, it had to come to pass. It may not have been the generation past, but it may have been their children's generation. And for many of us, that may be the place that we're at, where, you know, maybe our parents, our grandparents, they weren't able to, you know, fully enjoy all the promise and the purpose that God had for them. But because of the fact that God still promised it to them, God is still allowing it to trickle down to us. And because, you know, we're even in a place where we have an ear for a leader like Apostle and our leaders like, you know, Elder Nadia and even our leader, Minister Nicholas, the fact that we have an ear for them and they are our Moses in this season, God is letting us know, even because we're, you know, falling into submission in that, He's allowing even more grace to abound towards us because of that, because we're learning, you know, the lessons of that. We're learning from that. We're learning to, okay, God, even though I may be feeling jacked up, I'm glad that you still have somebody there to talk to me, somebody there still to instruct me. And even when I may struggle with hearing you, God, or listening to you, I thank you. You still have somebody to keep chasing after me and keep pressing me and pushing me. And keep pushing me to, like, encourage me, to correct me, to check me. And a lot of times, we, struggle with that because we're just like, God, you're always telling me what I'm not doing right, or God, you're always checking me, or you're always rebuking me, or you're always correcting. I'm talking about me. You're always correcting me, God. You're always coming for me, God. You're always checking me. But what I didn't realize was the grace in that, because I was thinking to myself, like, God doesn't have to talk to us. He doesn't have to talk to me. Like, He doesn't have to correct me. He doesn't have to check me. He doesn't have to use Elder Nadia to talk to me. He doesn't have to use Apostle to be like, I see you, devil. Like, he doesn't have to, He doesn't have to do any of those things. But the fact that He still is able to come and speak to me, speak to any one of us on any given day that we are, just not right, that's His grace towards us. And there's so much of it. And I'm just glad that even right now, I can feel so much of God's grace even in this room. I just thank Him for that. And so, just looking at even verse 8 through 10, it says, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous and